Hi everyone, my name is Voya and welcome to My Deep Guide. In today's video, we're still checking out the Boox Max Lumi, and this time we're diving into the native apps and third-party apps. Basically, I'm covering what are the most important native apps that you should familiarize yourself with, why and what they give you, and also covering the compatibility, issues, functionalities, what works, what doesn't work, what to expect, what not to expect regarding third-party apps on the Boox platform. So let's start. Right, so here we are in the apps section with Max Lumi once again, and I'm going to be covering built-in apps and a little bit with third-party apps. And I'm going to try to make a point here, so I'm not going to troubleshoot the issues and I'm not going to try to solve them. I am going to simply describe what the user experience for me is with third-party apps and what my conclusion and basically why I rarely talk about them when I talk about e-ink powered Android devices. So first of all, I want to focus on native apps, and I think that's a very important distinction, doubly so because you have two app stores. So you can see that we have these simplified icons here, which are basically just line art, no colors whatsoever, basically just black and white and lines. That's an indication of a built-in app. So built-in apps have these types of icons, and these apps are installed from the App Store. So this is the native Boox Apps Store, and you have categories and you have different types of apps that you can install, including Co-Reader. Some of them are already installed, but Kobo Reader, Amazon Kindle, etc., etc. These apps have been basically somewhat optimized so that they can work better than the normal app on an e-ink device. So that is the benefit of using, for example, a Kindle version from the App Store and not from the Google Play Store. So now things are becoming a little bit confusing because you have App Store and you have Google Play Store, and then if I install Kindle here and Kindle there, things become a little weird. So let's focus on the native apps, and one of the new things that came out is the Neo browser, and the Neo browser has a few things that are kind of new. So I'm now in speed mode, but if I switch to A2 mode, which is preferred for scrolling and looking at the content like this, you can see that the performance is really good. Image clarity is very nice. I can pinch and zoom. I can then, when I'm in pinch mode, I can scroll left and right, and I can just drag things around, and then I can zoom out all the way I want. Now, there's a couple of things that have been shown, but I can't get them to work on pretty much any website, and that's increasing and decreasing the font type. Obviously, this is just a firmware upgrade thing, and maybe it's going to be already fixed by the time you actually see this video. I don't know, but currently that's just the thing, and it's not such a big deal for me because I have the pinch zoom in. But what's really cool is this icon here, which is the full screen mode, and then you have your web browser in a full screen mode. Now, a couple of things. It's you can just use back to back out of it, and then it goes back. I think that the full screen mode is really, really good, but it would be, I think, preferable to have at least that upper bar with the URL and the back and forward button so that we can actually navigate the browser itself, or maybe some gestures, but I don't see any back or forward gestures or anything like that. So here's one thing also that's currently present. If I'm not in full screen mode, I can zoom in as you normally would. However, when I go into full screen mode, this no longer works because it's simply navigating things. Maybe that's desired behavior. Maybe that's something that you would like because you're just looking over the newspaper page, but again, it's something that's a little bit inconsistent. So for my at least use case scenario, I would expect the pinch zoom gesture to actually work in a full screen mode as well. So definitely some stuff that's going to be improved hopefully over the coming days with the firmware updates and all that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, I think it's a very, very good web browsing experience, and just works okay with these few things currently not working properly. But as I said, software update solves them, and then I guess it's going to be even better. Then, of course, we have the all-important navigation ball app, and for those who don't know, that's this little guy here that I actually showed before. And navigation ball is basically a shortcut to customizable 9 shortcuts to different types of functionalities. The navigation ball can be placed anywhere. It's always visible like an overlay on top of any app or any screen mode. Even in split screen mode, it's there. Only one navigation ball, you don't get 2. It's a system-wide helper. And basically when you go into apps and navigation ball, you get all the stuff that you need, so you can change navigation ball styles and also the configuration of the buttons. So that's something that I think is an essential one to get the grasp of and to understand, because it really enhances the user experience with the Boox platform quite considerably. New from 2.3.1 or 2.3, I'm no longer sure, but one of the new, I think it's 2.3.1, it's the calendar Memo app. And it's good to see that we no longer have 2 calendars, which was the case with the 2.3.1. In version 3, we no longer have calendar and calendar Memo. Calendar Memo is your main app. And what does it do? Well, of course, it's a calendar and an organizer. And readings that were done previously are going to be listed on a day-per-day basis. And also you have the memo part where you can scribble stuff or basically write your memo. You can email the memo if you want to. You can check the functionality of that, how it works in my update 2.3.1. It's covered in detail. But also what you write here works in conjunction with the Screensaver app, which is the next thing that I'm gonna cover and explain. For now, just kind of put a pin in this and remember that the memo from the calendar app is connected in a way to the Screensaver app. But this is kind of useful because, as you can see, for the 19th, I said film the remaining 2 videos for Max Lumi. Guess what I'm doing now? Check out the third party and native apps. And the second one that I'm going to film after this one is Bluetooth keyboard shortcuts video. So that's basically my use case scenario, how I plan things on this one. Now you can see that the previous week is fairly empty, and that's because I did not use this one because I'm reviewing other devices since I'm kind of finished with this, and by the end of the week it's going to the next reviewer. I think it's a really good organizing tool, with one thing that I still do miss. On non-writing capable devices such as Poke 2, you can type in the memo, and you don't have the option, or I am completely unable to find that option on this one here. I can just scribble it, and that's something that I'm missing. Yeah, it's great to have scribbling, but it would be even better to have an option and switch between scribbled and typed, because sometimes maybe I just want to type stuff, especially when I'm using the keyboard. And if everything is hooked up via the keyboard, then it's like, yeah, I just wanted to do this, but then I have to reach for the pen and blah, blah, blah. And then it doubles up again. There's no pen next to it. Then you have to find your pen, then you have to write on it. It's not a big deal at all, but it is something that kind of disturbs the workflow, and I think it's unnecessary because it's already been implemented in Poke 2, so the functionality is there. It just needs to be allowed in here as well, I think. Now, the next important native app that you need to be aware of and that you should familiarize yourself with is the Screensaver. And the Screensaver app is basically allowing you to customize your shutdown image, Screensaver, and your Screensaver, basically standby Screensaver style and images that you use. So, for example, let's just check shutdown image. You can choose between any of the local images, then you can choose any any of the images that you may have on the cloud or that you may have transferred via the Wi-Fi or the push functionality, which we also will cover very shortly. But yeah, basically it allows full customizability. So if you just upload your PNG, even if it's in the wrong format, it will allow you to select it. Of course, the best thing is to have the correct resolution and orientation. Save it as a PNG file in grayscale, and then you'll have the best possible results. But yeah, it's as easy as simply dumping your PNGs into screenshots, because that's what it found. So if you just simply dump everything into screenshots, those will be automatically noticed by the screensaver in the local, because you saw that I have this one in there and it locates it easily. So I think that's the easiest way to get those things. Same thing goes for screensaver styles. However, you have I think 4 different screensaver styles. So the default one is just the image, and you can always choose a different type of images by going select images, and then you have the exact same thing that we just shown. And you can also customize the text color. Do you want a clock or not a clock, text display, show nothing, bottom status bar, etc, etc. Then we have the calendar screensaver, and that's when I talked about the calendar memo, to put a pin in the memo. So if you choose this style, instead of short note, your memo, today's memo, will show. So let me just demonstrate that. If I power down, there it is. So this is my current screensaver, and you can see that it's showing the clock, the date, and today's memo, which is what I wrote. And if you have several pages worth of memos, then you will be able to flip through them as well, even while it's in standby mode, which is great, because then you can just simply use it as a post-it type of thing. Other screensaver style, and of course you can change the clock style, clock refresh interval, text color, on here, show border or don't show border, lots of really cool things. It can be just a clock and a date, and finally it can be a transparent screensaver, which is excellent for checklists, to-do lists, or meeting points, or anything like that, where you maybe just have everything that you need on one document, and let's say that on one page, and let's say that you remain on that page for 40 minutes or an hour. You can just simply put it into standby mode. It doesn't spend almost any battery basically, and you still see the content that you need. So it's a great way of doing these things. Obviously, you need to be aware of that. You shouldn't use this if you have sensitive content on the screen or confidential content on the screen, because it's transparent. So you need to use common sense, but other than that, I think it's very versatile, and this is one of those things that I mentioned that I absolutely love about the platform, because the customizability and the flexibility it's so easy to do whatever you want and to customize it to your needs. One thing that should not be forgotten is that you also have the normal clock app, which contains stopwatch, timers, and alarms. So this is something that definitely helps as an overall device, and it's definitely a cool thing to have. I don't think this is a distraction. I don't think having a timer on something is a distraction. Is it necessary? Well, probably not, because you already have your phone and you probably will have it. But in case that you want to go phone free and all that kind of stuff, you are not totally cut off from these simple functional devices. And let's say that you maybe are doing croquet drawings or anything like that, then you just set your 5-minute timer, and then you have 5 minutes to sketch out something, and it goes beep beep beep, and you know to stop. So that's just one practical application, and there's many. So for me, the alarm clock and the functionality of a clock is an important one to have in a device. Now, obviously, there's also the gallery and the music and the calculator and all that kind of stuff. But the one that I think is quite useful is the recorder, because you can record your thoughts or memos or anything like that. So I can just simply start my recording here, and it just records normally. So you'll notice that I'm not moving anywhere. This is just a normal working position. And let's now stop. Okay, let's check out, I guess, this one, and let's hear. Start my recording here, and it just records normally. So you'll notice that I'm not moving anywhere. This is just a normal working position. And let's now stop. And there. So it definitely works, and it's something that's super helpful in an all-rounder device. And I think it's a really, really important one to have, especially for meeting memos or anything like that, so that you can transcribe afterwards. Because what you can do is, especially in a split screen mode, then I could just, for example, select the recorder. I could go into split screen mode, yes, and then I can flip around, and then I can have a notebook in one half of the screen. So let's give it a template. Let's choose a line. There. And in here I have my full control. So let's say that I recorded my meeting or a session notes, then I can just simply play here. Start my recording here, and it just records normally. So you'll notice that I'm not moving anywhere. This is just a normal working position. And then I can just simply stop. Go back. Start my recording, and it just records normally. Etc., etc. So you definitely, I think, can see the benefits of combining these features if they suit your kind of use case scenario. So this is a use case scenario where I most definitely would use it like this. And I think it's super helpful because I don't have to have the recorder and everything I did on the dictaphone, on my Zoom, or sorry, not the Zoom chat thing, but the Zoom recording device or my phone, but everything is here. And then I don't have to fiddle around. I can just sit comfortably somewhere and transcribe my meeting notes, session notes, thought notes, or anything very, very comfortably and extremely efficiently. So it's really easy to overlook this voice recording type of app, but for me, at least personally, it adds an extra dimension of usability and practical use of this device, especially in professional type of situations. All right, the next one is called Transfer Boox. That's where you go if you want to have access to wirelessly transfer books to the device itself via online shenanigans, or to basically have push to the device, so you can send an article or anything like that to the device directly. So those are two different things. So just remember, you go to Wi-Fi transfer, transfer books, and then you have two functionalities: Wi-Fi transfer and push. So now let's cover the Wi-Fi transfer. As soon as you go there, obviously you need to be logged into the Boox account, I think, so that this can work, because it synchronizes with the server and all that kind of stuff. Then you can go into the browser. So you type in the IP address that is shown here, and it's important to include the port as well. And remember, this is if you have dynamic IP assignment on your network, which most likely you do, it's not going to be the same one all the time. So you do need to double check that address. It will change from time to time, which is perfectly normal. And as soon as I type it in and hit enter, you can see that on the screen, now I have Boox Wi-Fi transfer. And of course you can scan the QR code and just get there immediately. And if I go to upload files, yeah, maybe I can just find something that's, so let's say that maybe I'm interested in some user manuals for whatever, synthesizers, what else? And let's see, user manuals here, and then I can just upload the Evolver guide. Now this is already been uploaded and it's transferred. So now if I use one of the swipe gestures to go back home and I go into document, oh sorry, not documents, but in the root, there we go, Evolver guide. It has already been upload it, and it goes very, very quickly. And then you can normally use it as you normally would, and you can move it to any kind of, so basically let's just move into documents, and there we go. So very, very normal type of functionality. One of the things is that, can you upload multiple files? Well, yeah, you can. So let's just do that again. I'm going to click on upload files, and let's I believe that Yamaha EX5 has a lot of them set down here, so I can select 4 of them, and it just goes, all right, so status uploaded. And now it's going to take a little bit of time to process, because it's 5 files, I think, no, 4 files, but they should appear very shortly. And actually, here they are already there. So all of them are there. So this is a really, really cool thing. One thing that I do miss, same as on the Remarkable type of platform, is the ability to set the default folder where transferred files will go, because right now they just simply go into the root of your library, and basically not the root of the library, they're just placed somewhere, but the library recognizes them as new ones and puts them in the root. It would be nice to have a kind of functionality that, for the users like myself who like their libraries organized into sub-libraries and categories, to have the ability to say, all right, all newly imported documents from Wi-Fi transfer go to this sub-library folder. And then, so that I don't have to go now and select each one of them and move them into documents. Now, this is obviously a super minor thing, but it would be, I mean, if we already have all these functionalities, it would be nice to actually have them a bit more complete, which is kind of cool. Now, so this definitely works, and for me, it works really, really good. Now, the next one, we have the push, Boox push or something like that. And that one functions a little bit differently. You need to go to the web browser and type in push.boox.com. Once you do go there, you will have this type of server content synced type of stuff. And from there, you can send directly to your Boox as well. It takes a little bit of time. I don't know why there. Usually it's really fast, but there we go. So, and you can see that this is a really cool thing, because it synchronizes all of your notebooks and everything pretty much works very, very cool. And yeah, you can go to push. And in here, you have similar functionality like the read on Remarkable. So what I can do is I can just go and let's say that I am interested in this website, some research that I'm doing currently. And if I go to here, I can just paste the website that I'm interested in, or click to add files and drag and drop files to upload. So you can definitely upload a file directly. Or you can enter a web address here. And once I've added the web address, I'm going to push. And there we go. And you saw how quick that is. Now, the pushed article is automatically converted into an EPUB, so it is a text format. So most of the images and everything is going to be gone, but you get the article that you are interested in this fantastic platform, which is the Neo Reader, because now you can again do split screen note-taking from an article, from a scientific study, or anything like that. I think this is extremely useful, and in combination with this super powerful reader, it just is very, very usable. So those are the two main wireless methods of pushing and transferring things. Obviously, you can also plug it via the USB, and then it just behaves like a normal Android device, which means it shows up as a USB drive and you drag and drop files. So again, extremely good flexibility and usability on the device as file transfer side things go as well. All right, so now let's get on to the other apps. And one of the most important ones is Kindle, because a lot of users will have Kindle accounts and they will want to be able to use their library. And I'm using the native Kindle, the one that's installed from the App Store. So if I start it up, there we go. It's just loading in my previous book, which is really large, and it works really normally. So one of the things that's really good is that you don't have that slide animation. Actually, you do have it, but they've introduced like a simple little trick. If you are in normal mode, you won't see that one. You won't see the transition. However, if you switch to A2 mode, you will see that the transition it is still there. It's just that when you switch to normal mode, it is the update is a little bit slower, and it basically updates after this animation has happened. So for me, that actually works, and it solves the problem that I had before with it, because this is something that I don't think you can do on the Google Play Kindle that you download. It didn't perform that way. So this is the main thing that was a problem for me with the Kindle, but now if you use the native version, there we go. So if you do this, you will see that the sliding function is still there. So tapping works best for navigation in the native Kindle app. Everything else works pretty much normally as you would expect. So you have the X-ray mode, you have the formatting mode, you even have the dark mode, which that's in the format, I think. Yes. So you do have the option of going into the dark mode, but you better remember where the icons were in the menu. So I just want to remember exactly where this was. I'm just going to put a pen here to indicate where the formatting is. And I think it's going to soon become obvious why. So if I switch to black, this is excellent, because now I can have the black that's not contrasting with the outlines here, and I can read in the black format. So far so good, everything great, right? However, the optimization is not that great, and once you actually switch this, the text is now in black mode, which means that it's going to be displayed white, but the background here is white as well. So what you have is white text on white background, effectively meaning invisible icons. And just because they're invisible doesn't mean that they're not there, because I have my marker here to remember where the formatting is. If I tap here, I get my formatting, and then I can go back to white, normal type of functionality. So functionality is there. Does it work? Not great. I mean, you can use it, but you better be prepared, and you better know by heart where the icons are. Not for the faint of heart, not for the beginner, definitely not for people who are not tech savvy. This is something that would just simply put them in panic, rightfully so, because it's like, what the hell happened? I just switched it to dark and now I can never go out of it, which is perfectly understandable as far as I'm concerned. So this is a problem that needs to be fixed, and therefore it's not a complete experience that I would recommend. So dark mode, I think you should stay away from. Everything else works fine. In Kobo, for example, everything works fine. So if I go into Kobo, it updates everything and it works properly. It's a bit more crisper. Like the Kobo reader always is, it's much more crisper, you don't have, and it's a little bit faster because of the way how it updates and does everything. You see that I have a normal black mode here, and that the icons have not disappeared. So it's not the device's fault, it's the optimization of the app and how the app has been implemented, optimized, and done. Kobo app has been done properly, and if I go into, you have the reading theme, I can switch between classic, night theme, or the sepia theme, if that's something that you are interested in, and it always works. I can always do everything that I want normally, even in the dark one, so I don't have the problem that I had with the Kindle app. Again, I want to stress, this is not the device's fault, this is the optimization of the app's problem. Now, if the Kindle app that's offered on the Boox App Store has been optimized by Boox, then that is Boox's responsibility and they need to fix this. If it's not, if it's just Kindle doing it, then it's Amazon's responsibility. So I don't know whose it is and what it is, but yeah, it's basically there and it just does that. So yeah, I personally prefer the Kobo reader, but the Kobo reader has an unexpected problem. So if I'm in Kobo reader and I want to go to split screen, app does not support split screen. Kindle does. Ugh. So yeah, you can't have a dark theme on Kindle, but you can use Kindle in system-wide split screen. You can have dark theme that properly works on Kobo reader, but it doesn't support currently split screen. Heh, not great, but it is what it is. One of the things that I find this format and Max Lumi particularly awesome for is the reading of comics, and Comixology definitely works, but is again suffering from these kind of UI issues. It's you need to know where the icons are, because they will appear invisible on the apps that by default use dark themes, which means that they use white fonts, and then that's kind of a problem. So unless you know what's going on, it will look like it's not working, and to a degree it's not working the way it should. However, yeah, if you actually are able to figure that stuff out and you get to your apps, then the experience is very, very nice, and the large screen and the detailed format just works very, very nicely. So it's something that I like quite a lot, and yeah, performs great. You can of course double tap to have single panel per screen, and it's super readable, and it's something that I really, really like. You'll notice that in normal use case scenario, that little white pixel that I mentioned, currently I know it's somewhere around here, but I honestly can't find it at all. I can't really find it, and I'm at 50%. So maybe if I wanted to look for it, I would increase, but basically for me this is too much because of the black color. And in these lit conditions, I can simply turn off the front light completely and then just enjoy this kind of whole thing, how it looks. So Comixology for me works, with the caveat that this seems to be a recurring theme, that the dark UI themed apps don't display their UI icons properly. So that's something that is definitely a problem, and that should be addressed. Now let's focus on the typing and writing and the stuff that everybody talked about, and Microsoft Word. I really wanted to test this one, but I refuse to do troubleshooting. And the Microsoft app is such that because I'm using a two-step verification process, it blocks at the point where I need to choose where the second verification code is going to be sent to. I get to that point, I get through the whole ridiculous login and prove that you're a human, and once you actually finally go through that, and it gives you an option, send the verification code as it normally would. On Microsoft Word, it doesn't work. On OneNote, it works. So the same login process, same company, OneNote, I was able to log in normally and work properly. Microsoft Word, I wasn't. This is obviously the developer's issue, and that's something that Microsoft has to deal with, since the inconsistency, I mean, if it was a device thing, it wouldn't work on either of them. So I am unable to test Microsoft Word in my particular case. Let's go into OneNote. Thing that everybody is requesting, and yeah, let's just start writing here. Yeah, that's not a thing. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the reason why I did not test these things. OneNote is not So I have to write really slowly. I'm not doing this. So let me explain something. The responsibility of whether an app will work properly with an e-ink device or not is the app developer's responsibility, not theirs. And there's been this huge kind of ongoing thing where people go, yeah, if it's an Android, then it needs to work with Android. The user interface, the dark theme, absolutely, I agree. That's something that they absolutely have to figure out because it's a consistent type of thing. Screen updating and the lag in OneNote is Microsoft's problem, and that is something that Microsoft needs to deal with. The way it can be dealt with is a billion and one ways. What can Boox do additionally to make things better? They can maybe release an SDK for third-party developers that's really well documented and supported. I think that would open up the doors tremendously and it would explode the market hugely. However, currently SDK is available and it is somewhat documented, but it's not super friendly. So the possibilities are definitely there for the developers, should they choose to do so, to say, all right, let's say, as the CPU-Z is able to test out and say, give me information about the device. This device name is Max Lumi Onyx brrr. So you are able to, the app is able to query the device. Who are you? What type of display do you have? What do you do? And based on that information from the catalog of devices, as a developer, you will know, okay, this device is an e-ink device. I can't use my standard screen updating functionalities because they don't work on an e-ink device. It's a completely different type of technology. So, for example, LCD is refreshing 60 times a second or 120 times a second, and that gives you the FPS, should we say, type of performance. When you enter writing mode on an e-ink device, what actually kind of happens, not totally, but kind of basically what happens is it stops updating completely and it's just receiving the input on top of input on top of input until you go into erase mode or something else. So it's a fundamentally different type of way how the app needs to function. And what happens here in OneNote is that as you are changing, you're forcing the screen to refresh as fast as it possibly can, and then, yeah, you get what you saw. So this is the reason why OneNote should not be used as a writing type of app on e-ink devices until it has been optimized to work with e-ink devices. Hopefully that makes sense. So something that just isn't made for an e-ink device, Max Lumi included. All right, but what about the Microsoft Word and typing? That stuff definitely needs to work, and Sheets and all that kind of stuff. I'm a Google and G Drive oriented type of person, and I really despise the way Microsoft makes things overly complicated, especially with the subscription models and everything. So I'm gonna demonstrate these things through the Sheets and Docs. So Google Drive works normally as you would expect it to on any Android device. If I tap it, it goes in and then I can see all of my recent documents. I can actually switch to maybe A2 mode to refresh a little bit more quickly, and let's give a bit of front light. So yeah, you can do this. For me, I think the content is a little bit pale, so either increasing contrast or switching to speed mode. For me, speed mode works best. A2 is a little bit too pale for Google Drive and that kind of stuff. Then also you have Google Sheets and Docs as separate apps that you can install, and they work as you would expect them. So yeah, let's just refresh here, and I can just open one of the recent documents, and I can type here as you normally would. So I double tap to enter the edit mode, and once I enter the edit mode, I have my formatting options and I have my keyboard. So yeah, I can type like this. Should I choose to, you can long press and select, so you can then select all. There are some things that are a little bit kind of weird because The thing that doesn't really properly work is that magnifying glass, and you can see that it's kind of moving in a weird way, but it works. I mean, it's just a little bit user experience and UI is a little bit displaced, but functionality is absolutely there. Now, the way I prefer to use this is with a physical keyboard, and then it all works properly and yeah, normally as you would expect. So let's just show that for the sake of completeness. Alright, so now the keyboard has been connected, and because I enabled the option that the virtual keyboard is hidden, as soon as it was connected it became hidden, and now I should be able to, and I am. So you can see that the cursor is moving as you would normally expect. So if I use Control and select, I can swap, basically jump between words. Then if I use Shift, I can select the text, Shift Control, selects more, etc., etc. And for me, this is the preferred way of typing and using the text editor. So this most definitely works, and just for the sake of camera I'm showing it like this. Normally I would put it up on a stand and then just type, and yeah, in this configuration it works really great. You have the added ability of kind of using the pen as an input, so you can do definitely that if that's something that you prefer. So maybe if you don't want to, you can't draw on it obviously because Google Docs doesn't have that input, but it is interpreted as a touch input, so you can select and you can manipulate these things this way as well. And then I can just maybe say this, I want to be bold or italics, or change my font to 14 and whatever. So I think that the combination with the pen for precise type of input and the keyboard, physical keyboard for typing, I think that it really, really works and transforms a usually experience that I don't like, which is Google Drive Docs for Android tablets. I don't like how it normally works. This is the first time that I actually think that it works because it has the physical keyboard and the pen to help out with the fiddly stuff. So for me, the Google Docs thing works great. I can only assume that the Microsoft Word also works properly, but as I said, because of the login issues, I was not able to log in because of the two-step verification process that simply didn't work. Similarly, we have Google Sheets as well, and this is for your spreadsheets, of course. And yeah, so let's say my studio setup sheet that I use for cabling and all that kind of stuff, and let's just go, let's say new room, and it works as you would expect it to. You can definitely pinch zoom to kind of scale things and see what. You can get things faster if you switch to A2 mode, but the ghosting is going to be there. So I do prefer to have the speed mode because it works a little bit better, but if this is something that you want, it most definitely works, and it makes the tablet a lot more responsive. So one of the major issues that I have with the Google Sheets is, again, just the workflow and how it's been implemented and optimized for touch on tablets and phones. But you can overcome that with some of it. You can overcome with the keyboard if it's being used. So let's say that I pick this column here. Now, it's always a problem because you have to double tap it to enter the edit mode, and let's just double tap an empty one, and then you enter text or formula down here, and that's just a workflow I don't like. However, it works. I haven't switched keyboard, but yeah, you get the point. The same thing applies as in Google Docs. You can use the pen to transform your selections, and in that kind of situation, it starts to work properly. Now, I like to use a lot of color coding in my sheets, and that's why I don't see myself using a black and white e-ink type of display as an optimal sheet type of situation. However, it works. What you would expect it to do on a normal tablet or on a phone, it works in the same exact way. However, I think the caveat is don't try to tap it with fingers. Use the pen instead, because it's a lot easier and more precise to work that way. And also a physical keyboard helps a ton, for me at least. Now, it's also important to mention that Dropbox is something that you can use, and you can actually synchronize with Dropbox content. So there's a couple of ways that you can actually do that. First of all, if you go to settings and account, I'm just covering the email address here, but you'll notice that one of them is Dropbox Sync, and in this case I have binded it to the device. Once you do bind it, there is going to be a dedicated folder on your Dropbox, I think under apps. Yes, Onyx Keynote. And basically that's Max Lumi notepads and stuff like that. So there we go. Something has already been updated, and that works. Definitely it's possible to do these things. However, I haven't used it that much, and I'm not entirely sure how does it properly sync and everything else. So I don't have a proper workflow worked out with the Dropbox itself, but just the whole point of having a dedicated folder that automatically synchronizes with Dropbox means that with some fiddling and figuring out the proper workflow, you should, I don't know if you can, but I imagine that you should be able to say that maybe these notebooks or these documents or these things are automatically placed into the folder, which is automatically synced by Dropbox, which makes it possible for you to not need to send out or share items via email or anything like that, but instead they're automatically synced in the Dropbox, and basically as you're done, you just press sync, it's synced, and then you go on to the next platform and get the documents from the Dropbox. Ideally, that's how it should work, and that's something that I'm going to be attempting to do and figure out a workflow, how it works. However, I didn't have enough time to figure it out completely. I just see that yes, I do have a dedicated folder, yes, it's syncing with Dropbox, but there's some details that I need to still figure out in order to actually have a proper workflow, and once I do, I think that's going to be a really cool thing. And the final app that I really want to cover is Google Keep, because this is something that I use a lot, and in previous versions it didn't really work properly. Now in version 3 it finally works as it should. So, and this is the Google Keep version taken from the app store, not from Google Play Store, and you can see that it works as you would expect it to. It doesn't have that small UI scaling issue, it just works normally. So Google Keep is the thing that I use pretty much most of the time for all of my kind of memos and things like that, and for me that's a big deal that it actually works properly. You've probably noticed that in all previous reviews, I've never actually focused that much on third-party apps on Boox devices. And the reason behind it is that even though it is an Android 9 or 10 platform, and you can have a Google Play Store, that does not mean that just because you are able to physically install an app, that the app is going to take the maximum benefits of the device itself. And that's especially true for an e-ink device, where your main interaction point, which is the screen itself, is functioning so differently compared to the traditional LCD, OLED or QLED screens. And all of the apps on the Google Play Store are made for those screens, and virtually none of them have been optimized or are taking into consideration e-ink screens. Therefore, from that standpoint, expectations that just because an e-ink device is running an Android platform, that magically somehow all of these unoptimized apps are supposed to work perfectly is unreasonable. Because just think about this. If you bought a phone and you downloaded an app and that app didn't work correctly with your phone, are you going to complain to the phone developer or phone manufacturer or the app developer because of compatibility issues? So there is absolutely zero reasons why the same shouldn't be applied onto e-ink devices. Doubly so, because the app itself has to be reprogrammed in a very specific way to take advantage of the e-ink screen and the specific way it needs to instructions to be updated. Now, compatibility issues, that's not the Boox's responsibility, that's solely app developers' responsibility. Are there things that Boox can do to actually make this situation better? Yes, I think absolutely. An SDK that fully explains the implementation procedure for developers, well documented, well laid out, and fully encompassing, would do absolute wonders for this platform, because then each app developer would be able to easily query the device and ask, hey, are you a Boox device? Which one are you? What's your resolution? What type of screen you're using? All right, and then runs a specific set of instructions that's optimized for that situation. Case in point, the most requested app, OneNote. Currently, in any form, it won't work properly on any of the Boox products or any of the e-ink products simply because it does not refresh the screen properly. That's as simple as it gets. This refreshing of the screen and latency and how slow OneNote or any drawing note application thing will be is up to Microsoft or the app developer. Now, if the SDK is made more friendlier and more accessible, then that will increase the chances that the app developer will bother with this special use case scenario. And if we do get that synergy of those two things actually happening, then you can see an explosion of e-ink platform basically expanding even further. However, as it is now, just because the Android 10 and Google Play Store are there, do not expect the applications to fully work or to be fully compatible visually with the device. Since I'm an app developer and I've developed apps on Google Play, I know how this goes. It's your own responsibility to make sure that any device that you've included in your catalog of compatible devices is supported and it actually works. So unless it's done properly, just take it off the catalog and don't allow the app to be installed. Therefore, no confusion will be present for the users. All right, so that big thing out of the way, I want to focus on the App Store and native apps themselves because I think they're very important. And for me personally, that's what I'm focusing on. For me, what is the value of the Boox platform, and in this case, Max Lumi? It is the Neo Reader, note-taking capabilities, the powerful environment that it is, the CPU, RAM, and everything else, storage capacity specifications, the screen, everything there, and native apps such as file sharing or books sharing, if they have, how they call it, the Screensaver, the calendar memo, the dedicated browser that once they fix those little issues will be really, really good and proper to use. So the stuff that's been made for this environment. That's what I'm looking for in this device, and that's what I'm expecting from it. Google Play Store, I'm not really even counting on that. And unless this is your use case scenario, then you might actually end up surprised, disappointed, or something like that. But I think that it's important to understand why certain things work, why they don't, so that your expectations can be reasonable and manageable and that you don't get surprises or disappointments. As far as I'm concerned, in total, these apps, the Boox transfer, Wi-Fi transfer, push, even calculator, yes, the timer, weirdly so, the recorder and the split screen, that's something that I am going to use quite a lot once my Note Air comes here, because it slots right into my type of workflow, and it's a perfect addition. It's a very simple thing to overlook, but yeah, add the split screen, notebook, dictaphone or the recorder on the other side and transcribe your notes that easy. So those are the things that increase the value, flexibility and customizability of the device itself. And for me, those are the huge pluses. For me personally, the Google Play stuff, store, OneNote, the Word and all that kind of stuff, I really personally don't care about that at all, nor do I expect it from the device. However, I fully understand that there are users who want to have that, but then I have to ask a question: why don't you buy a Samsung tablet, Android tablet, or an iPad? Because if your needs are such that you are going into that direction, that you want the full-blown, in this case, Android experience, to me, it makes absolutely zero sense to buy any e-ink device that runs an Android just because you really want the fully fledged Android experience. So yeah, but again, to each his own. That's just my thinking. And of course, people are going to disagree, and that's okay. So those are my use case scenarios, those are the apps, how they work, and those are my 2 cents regarding the Android experience, Max, Lumi, whatever, Boox in total, and the Android, how it works in third-party support. Hopefully this sheds some light onto what to expect, what not to expect, why it works, why it doesn't work, etc, etc. If you like the video, like and subscribe, and tick the notification bell, because more videos are definitely coming, hopefully with Note Air as well. I should get it this week, I'm not sure yet. I'm waiting for the UPS to update itself. It's arriving from Germany, so we'll see. But either way, when it arrives, I'll get some time and then I'll make the regular videos so that we can explore it. And yes, of course, we'll do the comparison with the Remarkable 2, something that's really, really requested a lot. And if you like what I do and you want to support the mydeepguide platform further so that I can bring out even better videos, more content, and more kind of versatile type of things, then consider checking out the Patreon and becoming an official Patreon, because not only will you help the platform and grow and develop further, but you will also be able to get exclusive content, which is behind the scenes type of content, where I show stuff, how it's done, how it was recorded, and some kind of bloggy vloggy type of things. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye!